In 1973, Marlon Brando infamously refused to accept the second of his Best Actor Oscars for his portrayal of organised crime boss Vito Corleone in The Godfather. 18 years earlier, he graced the stage with his presence as he collected his prize for his jaw-dropping performance in one of the most powerful films of 50s cinema.
Money.
Well, I had some bets down for you. You saw some money.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it.
Thanks for clicking on. I'm Stephen at Real Classic Film Reviews. If you love classic movies of every kind, films from the golden age of Hollywood, cult classics, classic horror, modern classics, and pretty much anything else I can add the word classic to, then please consider dropping a like, subscribing and clicking the notification bell to keep up to date with all future episodes. In this episode, we're going to chat a little bit about 1954's dockyard drama / crime thriller On the Waterfront and how it's quite possibly Marlon Brando's finest hour. The late, occasionally great Marlon Brando plays a washed-up boxer named Terry Malloy. This guy had a promising career until it all went to hell after he agreed to throw a fight for a dockland mob boss, leaving him to a life of New Jersey dockyard work and sitting around caring for and chatting to his pigeons. The film's plot kicks into gear when Brando accidentally gets involved in the killing of a fellow union dock worker. He unwittingly lures a guy up to a rooftop where there's a couple of dodgy mob guys waiting to throw him off. This guy was talking to the cops about their dodgy boss, Johnny Friendly, played by Lee J. Cobb, a fantastically intense actor, mostly forgotten by today's modern audiences. Once he realises his involvement in such a crime, Brando becomes racked with guilt. To make matters worse, he becomes romantically involved with the dead guy's sister, played here by Eva Marie Saint, fantastically fragile as a rose amongst so many thorns. This was surprisingly her first big screen role, and she deservedly took home an Oscar for her troubles. As their initially shy and nervous relationship develops, the guilt threatens to consume Brando to the point where he feels he must confess to her and speak out against the wrongdoings he sees all across the dockyard. Things become more complicated still, sinister even, once Brando discusses his growing feelings of guilt with his older brother, here played by Steiger. The entire thing complicated by the fact that Steiger is himself a close associate of the big boss. In fact, the story as a whole deals primarily with relationships and how Brando is confused and torn between his loyalty to his brother, his growing feelings towards Eva Marie Saint, and the guilt that's now weighing him down. The movie has a strong undertone of Catholic guilt, and Karl Malden's priest is a major character, whose advice and observations lead many of the characters' decisions. Carefully sidestepping spoilers, things take a turn down the revenge and redemption road in the final third when a personal tragedy pushes Brando over the edge and towards a brutal and bloody showdown with Johnny Friendly. In a way, the film is almost a New York set working man's western, with Brando, the reluctant sheriff, and Cobb as his vicious nemesis. On the Waterfront is loosely based on real events ripped from the pages of Pulitzer Prize winning articles from the late 40s. It perfectly fuses an almost documentary look with a brave new world of method acting, made famous by the likes of Brando and James Dean. Small and subtle indications of its greatness are scattered throughout its runtime. In an early scene, Eva Marie Saint accidentally drops a glove on the floor, and Brando picks it up and fidgets with it while they continue their conversation. Small moments like this, unscripted but left in the film, provide the movie with a realism rare at the time. A more pivotal, if not the most pivotal moment in the film, a confession between Brando and Saint, has most of the audio obscured by the clatter of the dockyard, so we barely actually hear the confession, but we cut to Saint's horrified reaction. Again, these small moments that give it a realism that allows it to stand apart from many other films of the 50s.
You?
Honest to God, Elia, I didn't know. They just told me to take the picture and get him up on the roof. I didn't know what they were going to do. I wasn't even... Believe me, I swear to God, Elia.
The film's most famous scene, and the one that's leaked into popular culture, Brando's backseat "I could have been a contender" speech, played earlier in this review, is excellent and often imitated. Despite this, it is in fact the second best speech in the film, the #1 spot going to Karl Malden's priest, Father Barry. After an accident takes the life of yet another disgruntled dock worker, his "This is my church" loading-based speech / sermon, as he's pelted with fruit and cans, can still make your hair stand on end.
Boys, This is my church. And if you don't think Christ is down here on the waterfront, you've got another guest coming.
Get off the dock, Father!
Julio, don't do that.
Whose side you on, boy?
Let him finish.
Every morning, when the hiring boss blows his whistle, Jesus stands alongside you in the shape-up.
It's excellent and noteworthy acting aside, it's not the flashiest of films, but Elia Kazan directs it brilliantly in a gritty, scruffy black and white with some dark, almost film noir moments scattered about. This guy had already directed A Streetcar Named Desire and Viva Zapata, both with Marlon Brando, and would next direct James Dean in East of Eden. As mentioned, Brando here was fresh off A Streetcar Named Desire, The Wild One, Julius Caesar, all fantastic Oscar-nominated turns. This was Brando at the height of his powers, and arguably he'd never reached this level of awesome again. It was only with 1972's The Godfather that he would skirt close, before his ego and his waistline began to inflate at pace. It's quite an interesting aside that an actor of Brando's stature would only win 2 Oscars, one for a guy fighting organised crime and another for a guy running organised crime. On the Waterfront mixes suspense, tragedy, romance and drama, and features a conclusion that's genuinely one of the most powerful and satisfying of 50s cinema, if not cinema itself. Check it out. Guys, there are already so many channels available for reviews of the latest Marvel movie or the most recent action extravaganza starring The Rock, and I'm a big fan of all those films, but my main aim for this channel is to create a hub for lovers of classic movies. I want to talk about some movies that are going to be hugely famous and some you may never have even heard of, but become inspired to go out and find and watch. I'd also love this to be massively driven by you guys. Please fill the comments below with films you'd like to see reviewed and just films that you love in general, and I'll make it a priority to build the channel around those comments. Thanks for watching.